He's an actor, a singer, a writer, an author, director, proud activist, and a style icon. He won Tonys, Emmys, and a Grammy, and he's not done yet. My name is Tova Laiter, and on behalf of myself and the New York Film Academy, we are beyond excited to welcome the one and only Billy Porter. Hi, Billy.
Hi there.
Hi, Billy.
How are you, Tova?
Good. I'm so happy that you are here. And I want to tell you, the student didn't have the privilege to watch the movie. I did. Yeah. But I really, really loved it. And I'm going to talk to you later about it because we have questions about it.
Okay.
But because first, I wanted to know, how did you start in the business?
Okay, I'm going to make this short because that's a long story and y'all can read it in my book,
yes,
Unprotected, or you can listen to me. But essentially, I started singing in the church. I was introduced to theater in the 6th grade. I had a very traumatized childhood. I latched onto the arts. The arts found me. I understood that that was like a space for me to stretch outside of my comfort zone, possibly, not possibly, but like I could make a living, and so I just found the spaces and the work and the training and the stuff that I needed as I went along to sort of figure out, how can I do this for a living? So cut to the long story short, I ended up at Carnegie Mellon University in the drama department. I go through that program, and second semester, my senior year, I booked the original cast of Miss Saigon.
Unbelievable.
I moved to New York December 27th, 1990, and we started rehearsals for Miss Saigon on January 11th. Opened April 11th of 1991. Then I spent the first decade of my career doing Broadway shows and essentially being in the R&B music industry at the same time. I did 4 Broadway shows. I had an R&B album on A&M Records that came out in 1997. Everything imploded by the turn of the century, I like to say. Everything imploded. And I was sort of required to, I had an idea of, here's what happened.
You had an idea of what?
I'm saying I had an explosion,
yes,
right? I came to town, I played my trump cards, I had an explosion, and I found myself pigeonholed into a trajectory that what I saw in the future was not what I wanted. So I then had to figure out, well, A, what do I want? And then once I figure out what I really want, be specific with that and get that. And a turning point was going to see the original cast of Angels in America on Broadway in 1994 and seeing a reflection of myself in the character of Belize that I had never seen before in my life. I had never seen myself, my Black, queer, educated, unapologetic self reflected back at me in anything. And I was around the corner doing Grease with 14 inches of orange rubber hair on my head, prancing around like a little Richard automaton on crack, screaming the roof off the joint. And it was fabulous, but it wasn't what I came here for. I had something else to do and something else to say. And so it was in that moment that I understood, okay, I am this and nobody knows it. So how am I going to get from that description of the teen angel in Greece to the elevated and intentional art of the Jeffrey Wright who played the character of Belize? It's like, how am I going to transform that? And that was in 94, and cut to 2010, I was cast as Belize in the first off-Broadway revival of, the first revival of Angels in America off-Broadway in New York City in 2010. And that was the rebirth of my art. I found my voice.
Unbelievable. But look how much your intentions actually brought what you wanted.
Correct.
It's amazing.
Correct. And the thing that I say all the time is, you know, words do have power. And if we see anything with what is going on in our country, whether you agree with it or not, I don't, everybody knows it. And I'm not scared to say it. I'm done with that. But when you look at it, it's like, oh, right. As artists, we are put here on this earth to heal civilizations. And the only way we can do that is speak. We have to speak truth to power and look at, as artists, how we get to do that.
And that brings me to your show.
Yes.
That was so groundbreaking.
Yes.
And amazing in that way. And I'm talking about Pose.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, of course.
And what it did is, for us at large, it brought us into a world we didn't know through people and community that we came to care about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And
exactly.
What?
No. Exactly what humanity is about.
Well, the sense of family of those marginalized people and how they build a world where they can be in fame and rewarded and looked upon, which they couldn't find in the outside. I mean, that was so moving and powerful, really.
Good. I'm so glad that you received it in the spirit that it's been given, because the whole point is there are all different kinds of families. Families do not look the same.
Yeah.
And we choose love. We choose joy. Anyway. Period. That is what Pose for me represented. That's what, as a man at 52 years old who lived through the AIDS crisis, who spent so much time going, why did I make it?
Right.
You know, living with the fact that I was HIV positive for 14 years and told very few people, and did the whole show without anybody ever knowing.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
You know, it was like I knew somehow through my art at an early age that it would be the catalyst and the journey inside of where I could find my healing. And it's every day, it's all day, and I feel so blessed to have art to do it.
And we are blessed to have you do your art. I can tell you that, because everything that you do is excellent. How did you get that role in Pose?
I auditioned.
What did it come about?
I auditioned. So this is a really beautiful story. So I had done Kinky Boots. I had won the Tony. I had won the Grammy. You know, I've always had, you know, my relationship to auditioning for film and television coming from theater. I was always dismissed. I thought, you know, queer and dismissed. So being Black and queer, I was dismissed. I was here in the 80s. Nobody was interested in my story. So I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. And all I knew was how to be myself. Okay, tell me the question again because I lost my train of thought.
How did you get the role? The iconic role?
Right. So I was directing a lot, directing plays. And I had a great pilot season. And by pilot season, for me as a Black queer man, in the 30 years I've been in this career, I had a pilot season where I had 6 to maybe 10 auditions. My white counterparts had hundreds. And that's not an exaggeration. So one of the issues that I had auditioning, because I'm a personality. I'm big. I am present. I am, you know, like, that's what you get with me. And I would be dismissed. Too big, too this, but I would never be called in for anything if the description of the character didn't start with flamboyantly ... So I would come in and I would be the flamboyant person that the job description required. And then I would be dismissed as being too flamboyant. This is about 15, 20 years of my career. And I thought after having a Tony and a Grammy, that would change. And it didn't. And I remember riding home from directing Top Dog, Underdog at the Huntington Theater in Boston and getting that news that I was too flamboyant for feedback that I was too flamboyant for yet another television show. And I just lost it. And I pulled over, I called my sister, I ranted, I raved. I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not begging people anymore to see me. I am totally fine behind the scenes. I have to be the change that I want to see. And the only way I can do that is to like write it and produce it and like get into a position of power that doesn't require somebody else to validate me by giving me a job. The minute I had that breakdown, I hung up with my sister. And he's like, Ryan Murphy's doing a show based on the ball culture, and you have an audition in 3 days.
Wow. And
I was like, okay, God, I see you. Now, then we have the next phase, which is I get the script, I get my sides because there's no letting out of, you know, we didn't have the full script because he didn't want stuff leaking. So I get the script and I am a dance teacher that ended up being a Charlene Woodard, the Charlene Woodard character. And I was like, but this time I was able to walk into Alexa Fogel's office, the casting director, with Angels in America and Kinky Boots behind me. I had re-entered the market as exactly what I extracted myself to be. Now, people respect me as an actor. So I was able to go in and say, okay, Alexa, I did it and I worked on it and I did it well. And I said, okay, listen, I just have to say this. I don't know what's happening, but I just have to say that like I lived it. I lived through this and I don't know what the concepts are, but like to have me in this and then have me vibrating in another world is a waste of everybody's time.
Right.
You know, what about one of the mothers of the houses of, you know, because I went to balls, you know, and that's when I heard that Ryan had the concept of the girls, the transgender girls. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant, like fucking brilliant. So I said, well, I'm certain that a lot of them will be very young. And maybe he might need, you know, the wise sage in that world over there that is a cisgendered gay man. Maybe he needs that. And she said, yes, let me talk to him and we'll get back to you. And like 3 weeks later, I got a call and they said, Ryan thinks you're right. And if you can, you know, there is an MC in the pilot. If you could sort of like find your way into like what your version of some of the MCs from Paris is Burning, the documentary would be, yes, then, you know, actually they said impersonation was what was translated to me. I'm not sure that that's exactly what it was. And I said, listen, every single person in the culture has been doing an impersonation of all of the people from Paris is Burning without the knowledge. They didn't know because they think Madonna created voguing.
Right.
So now it's our turn to take that. So now it's our time to take back the control of that narrative. And so I knew going in that this was it. And Ryan Murphy, in his infinite wisdom, knowing that I was from the theater and MJ was from the theater and Dominique had never done anything before. And he brought all of the producers and all of the writers and the entire team to New York City in one room and ran it like a final callback of a Broadway show.
Wow.
As opposed to what a traditional screen test is.
Yes.
Because I screen tested one time in my entire career. And that was Queer as Folk, the American version. That's the only time I screen tested in my life. I've never made it to a screen test any other time. And Pose came along and my screen test was a final callback for a Broadway show. Well, that's my wheelhouse. I was like, oh, the people are in the room so they can ask me questions and understand that as an actor, I make bold choices and that's not the only thing I can do.
Right.
And if you want something different, you can ask me that. And in real time, I can show you I have range. That's my superpower. Right. So Ryan Murphy knew that they all had to see that magic. And not just me behind the screen, because he knew what my power was on the screen, because he's not afraid of big and bold and brash. He's made the careers of everybody. He's made the careers of all those old broads. He's brought them all back.
Yes.
And the young ones and the new ones. And his work is muscular and he wasn't afraid of me.
Yes.
So I get into the final callback. I walk into the room. I have like 17 pages of declarations because there was no role, there was just the MC. So it was like, the category is blah, 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 ka, ka, ka. You know, what Pray Tell became famous for. So I did that. Everybody was doubled over. I just spoke. I didn't have a scene. So then Ryan said, pull over a chair. I've not actually really told this story very often. So Ryan pulled out a chair. He said, sit there. And he asked me about Trump.
Wow.
And about 40 minutes later, the room was laughing, crying, silent, riveted, like it was everything. You know, because I'm an empath, I'm political, I'm enraged, you know, I'm that person.
Yeah.
So I had come in from Fire Island for that. I left. And he said in the room, he was like, you know, I hope you would consider joining us. And you know, I hate that shit. Because it's like, you know I would, just ask me to do it. Stop the bullshit. You know, like as an actor, when they're like, read this for interest. No, do I have the gig or not? You know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm interested. So I went back. I went back on the train to Fire Island. I got on the ferry, and when I arrived back to Fire Island, I got a call from Ryan, and he said, we have to do this together. And they created Pray Tell for me. And that is, you know, that's a lot of talking, but we have an hour. And I thank you, because I think it's really important that people at least get the bullet points of a life, of a career, of, you know, people think I just got here.
Yeah.
I'm 52 years old and I've been in this business for 35.
Yeah. Okay, so fast, yeah. So you had an aunt who said something so brilliant. I wish she was my aunt. She said,
what? Dress for the job
when
you want?
you're ready, you don't have to get ready.
Oh. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Right. Absolutely.
Okay. So that's brilliant. And the other thing, it is so true. And the other thing that Dylan, your co-star in Pose, said about you, because they asked him, and he said about you that you so committed, you were so committed to the role and so present that if something changed, there was suddenly on the set, you know, a dialogue change, you immediately were able to handle it. He said it was like a tennis game where you're always present for the volleyball.
Oh, I'd never heard that. That's so sweet.
So I want to ask you, does the commitment harness being there? Meaning, does the commitment come first and then you present?
That's a really good question, Tova. Wow. I wish I had questions like this all the time. I really do. You know, ask me again so I can take it in.
Because I want to know what comes first. If you commit to a role, that commitment makes you present.
Yes.
At all times.
Yes. Yes. But here's what I'll say. For me, and I'll just talk about my journey.
Yes.
It was being first generation civil rights movement. First impression is what you look like. Wear good clothes. Education, no matter what it is, that's the only thing that gets you out, right?
Yeah.
So even as an artist, with nobody in my family or in my world ever, I had no guidance. I knew that I had to find out where to train first so that I know what I'm doing. If I know what I'm doing, then and if I know what the rules are, then I can change the rules. And I know that I'm going to have to change the rules because I don't look like anything I've seen. So I know that. So that's the first part. So it's understanding that this is a discipline, it's a craft, it's a job, it's a profession. It's not just happenstance. And just because you're good at, you were good in high school and you have a natural talent, doesn't mean that you have longevity. And so I learned that early, and our business makes the mistake. It's like there's Kardashianism, no shade, and then there's artistry and everything in between. And there are different, you know, and you have to be some things some of the time, some things other the times. But what I learned was, oh, this is a craft. So let me know my craft. So when I get there, this is 35 years. I have done this for my entire life. It is second nature. It is like brushing my teeth. And when I was in college, I remember feeling patronized when the teachers would say, they taught us, how to score a script and how to like do your research and blah, 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 all of that stuff. That was like the craft of it. And they said, one day you're not going to need this. But right now, you haven't lived long enough to understand it. So you have to research it first and then put that into your bodies. What I'm grateful for is that I've lived long enough to know it already. And I used to always get so anxious because it was like your queerness is your liability. My time at Carnegie Mellon was all about you have to be masculine. You can't be the sissy that you are. You can't, we had 3 archetypes. We had James Earl Jones, the matriarch, as Black men, black artist. We had Denzel Washington, the sex symbol, and we had Eddie Murphy, the genius clown. And they were all straight, and sometimes violently so. So for me, I always knew that I was going to have to create my own path. So I just wanted the craft. And they were right. Living, continuing to live. I got my shot at 49. I lived my life going, it's going to be Sam Jackson. It's going to be Olympia Dukakis. It's going to be Morgan Freeman. It's going to be these dolls that like don't really hit until their late 40s, 50s. And then all of a sudden you're like, who's this old guy? And all of a sudden there's like 275 movies later, Sam Jackson. And he didn't really hit till he was in his late 40s. Yeah. So these are the examples that I found, researched and found so that I could maintain hope.
Yeah.
So I would say it's all of those things because I just know how to do it in every way. And it was so safe and it was so comfortable. And I love my 40s for that. Because finally I was like, I don't have to pretend to be anything.
In meantime, 2 things happened.
Yeah.
You were a force in the culture and the culture caught on to you.
Yes. Yes.
The same.
That is true. That is true.
So now, yeah. So now I want to ask you about your movie that you directed.
Yay!
Anything's Possible is so sweet and so romantic. And while it brings a new modern twist to the high school rom-com,
yes,
when I saw it, it felt very normal.
Yes.
And, okay, trans girl, cis boy, sure. And I think it's because your cast was so appealing.
Yeah.
And there was something so, I have a crush on the boy.
Everybody will.
Yes. And because it's also the tone, the directing of it was so natural. Do you understand? There was nothing forced about it. And therefore, you were just into that story. And as you say, and I think I understand now why you chose that movie to be your directorial debut, but I want to hear from you. Yeah. Why did you choose that?
So the movie chose me. Long story short, I moved to Los Angeles in 2000. I had done a couple of movies in 99. I thought I was going to be Black and queer in Los Angeles and be on film and television. Didn't happen. Ended up going to film school, screenwriting school, did Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. I don't know if you know what that is,
Of course, she was married to Marty Scorsese, and she was at the time, she wrote the book when I came to Hollywood.
So I found that book. I was like, oh my God, this is like 2000. I'm like, oh my God. I excavated something in myself that I didn't even know I wanted, which was, oh, I want to be the storyteller. See, I'm the last of a generation of people who were taught to be brilliant interpreters of other people's work. If you didn't come to it with wanting to be a writer or a director or something like that, nobody said anything. You know, it's not like today where the whole culture is that. All these kids know, they already know. It's like, oh, my story is already valid. More than anything that came before me. You know, for better or for worse, that's a good thing, and there are bad things, or there are challenging things about it. But like, I didn't have that. So keep me on track. Tell me the question again.
The question is, why did you choose that movie?
Right. So I made through that book, I was like, oh, I want to be a filmmaker. Oh, I want to be a writer. Oh, I want to be. So once again, like when I like the transition for Angels in America, I'm like, okay, now how do I get to film director from like Broadway actor who's done 2 movies? Right. Oh God, what is that? You know, but I said it out loud, and I said it for years, and I said it for 2 decades. And I remember also reading that Malcolm Gladwell book, The Tipping Point.
Yes.
At the time. And I was like, oh, 10,000 hours or something. Oh, okay, let me just settle in and figure out what this is. And I just started doing it. And I just started working and doing it and putting one foot in front of the other, one day at a time. I was like, let me just do it. And all of a sudden I woke up one day and the phone rang, and Christine Vachon and David Hinojosa of Killer Films and DJ Guggenheim and Andrew Lauren of Andrew Lauren Productions called me and sent me the script and asked me if I had interest, you know. And I read the script and I just wept. I was like, oh my God, here I am 22 years later. I'm gonna make that movie. I am going to be a film director. Just like I said I was. I'm just like, it's just magical. It really is.
Yeah, you know what also I think is great about it? That directing job doesn't have color.
Yes.
It just has talent.
Yes.
It just has a message of love and joy, which you were going to bring to the world.
Oh.
So I think it really scored on every point. Now,
thank you.
I have talked.
And you know, I did the soundtrack too. Did you know that?
Really?
I did a soundtrack. It's a soundtrack with like 95% queer artists. I wrote 6 new songs with Justin Tranter for it. And that's coming out on July 22nd too.
Amazing, amazing. I want to now bring the student for their questions because they're anxious. It just grows as we talk. So, and it's for them. Michael, do we have any questions?
We do. We have a question here from Angelica Cohen. Angelica, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Billy?
Hi, my name is Angelica, and I'm very shy. And I was wondering, were you ever shy? And
no.
And is there a message you would give to me?
Yeah, you know, I think that being shy, you know, so much of our behavior ultimately, at the end of the day, is a trauma response to something.
Mhm.
You know, so my question so what I would say is figure out where the root of whatever that was, and trust that you are enough just as you are. And the combination of those two things will get you to a place where your shyness won't be your liability. But there's also nothing wrong with shy either, honey, because shies are observant. And if you want to be an artist, you also must be an observer of life. So, you know, don't lose it all.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Porter.
You're welcome.
So sweet.
We have another question here. This one is from Quan Robinson Thomas. Quan, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Billy?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Billy. I am a huge, huge fan of your work. Thank you so much for sharing your brilliant talent with us and
Oh, you're
for
welcome.
sharing the awareness and the accountability to all mainstream audiences. I really, really, truly appreciate you. I had a few questions for you, but I'll ask the first one first. When you think about the impact Pose has had on the television landscape and society,
Yeah.
what type of story do you think is currently missing from the landscape today? And what
The
would you
one I
like to
just
see
did.
told next?
The one I'm doing. You haven't seen the movie yet, though, girl.
No, they
I'll
haven't
answer your
shared the movie
question.
with us yet, but we did get the trailer and it does look absolutely amazing. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's like,
100% looking forward to it.
yeah, we need joy. We need to remember that we have to live and have joy. And this is about trans joy. This is about celebration. This is about the normaling, a trans celebration. It's about the normalizing of the othered. So it's like, it's cool. This is the next version.
Yes.
Gotcha. And then what is something that you learned about yourself as a director that surprised you in this experience? And what are you going to take back with you in like your future acting roles?
This, with the directorial debut, I had never done it before. What I learned about myself was, I was really nervous and anxious about it being my first directing role. And, what if I don't know what I'm doing and blah, 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 all of that. And I learned that I knew what I was doing. I know what I'm doing. That was good. That was like a breath.
Okay. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much.
Thank you so much.
We have another question here. This one is from Rosa Salvatierra. Rosa, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Billy?
Hi. Oh my goodness.
Hi.
First of all, I love you so much.
Thank you.
And my question is, if you could change anything about your career, would you change anything?
Nope. I wouldn't, because the lesson is we are exactly where we're supposed to be at all times. And everything belongs.
Amazing.
Even the uncomplicated stuff, even the complicated stuff. It's like it all belongs. So when we understand that that's life, then there's nothing that isn't necessary for your evolution as an artist and a human being.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have a question here from Jessica Jane Goundry. Jessica, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Billy?
Oh my God, this is so exciting. I'm sorry if I'm talking low. It's like 2:15 in the morning in the UK.
Oh, that's okay.
So I have a couple of questions. I absolutely love you and I love Pose. What's the category, by the way?
Love, honey. Love, always.
Well, you are a huge inspiration to me as a disabled queer filmmaker / writer.
Oh, great.
And I wanted to know two things, if that's okay.
Yeah.
What inspires you, and what advice do you have for new filmmakers and writers? In other words, like how does one keep truthful to one's own experiences and voice?
Ask me the first question again.
Well, what inspires you?
Well, interestingly enough, my biggest inspiration is my mother, who also happens to be disabled. So there you have that. How fortuitous and what a coinky dink that is. What was the second question?
And do you have any advice for newbie filmmakers / writers? How does one keep truthful to one's own voice?
Well, you just have to. And I think it's a lesson that you learn in real time. And I've learned it in real time, and I've relearned it in real time, and I've relearned it in real time. But like, it's about how much compromise, right? Before it's not what you want anymore. But you don't know what that is until you compromise too much. You know, like you have to, it's like you can't have the answer before the experience.
Yeah.
And that's hard because we want all the answers first.
Yeah.
You know, because we feel like it's safer, but it's not. Just be in the moment and it will reveal to you. And you have to like try, and you know, some things work and some things don't. I mean, I know, you know, even with this movie, there are things that I compromised on that, you know, I don't like that I had to, or I don't like that I did, you know, but now I know in the future how far to go, what to hold on to, you know, that kind of thing.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I love you.
I love you back.
We have a question here from Theola McIntosh. Theola, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Billy?
Okay, I was wondering, like, how did you start acting? Because from where I stay, it's kind of complicated because there's not much opportunities on how to start.
Yeah, you know, I was in the 6th grade in 1980. I was the last of a generation that benefited from the government caring about its people. There were a lot of after-school programs, there were a lot of incentives, there was a lot of stuff. And so the luxury I had was that I did have opportunity like that. And that opportunity was abundant and free. You know, I haven't been around in a long time, but I do know that all those programs were cut. And as you see what's going on in the world today, everything that you're seeing coming to roost right now with the Supreme Court, with Roe v. Wade, all this stuff has been the long game since I was in the 6th grade. I've seen the whole thing happen, so I can respond to that. I'm a little, you know, so I think, and I don't know, but do some research. I feel like at this point, there has to be something online, right? Like there has to be like, you able to join a online class, or I don't know. I mean, I need some help here, y'all.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. There are classes online, but it's like $5,000 a class, and I just think that's absolutely crazy to be that expensive to learn how to act.
All right, I'm gonna say something about that,
Okay.
about the tone of that. It's not expensive
Okay.
to learn how to act. Acting is not something that should be disrespected in that way. It's a craft, just like
Right.
everything you have to pay for. Now, are the prices for education across the board ridiculous? Yes. I will buy into that. But the idea that acting doesn't warrant a level of respect is a no.
Okay.
Now, with that said, I really need to figure out how to get you somewhere for less than $5,000. All of the things are true. It's like, now where do you find some place? Where are you from?
I'm from Nigeria, but I stay in the DMV.
And where?
The DMV, like Maryland.
In Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And what other research have you done? Is that like the only thing y'all got?
No,
Or are there?
I can do more research. It's just the ones that I found currently.
I mean, I feel like you're in a place in Baltimore where like they actually have not-for-profits that would sort of help you with something like that. So I would encourage you to like do some more digging.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just like do some more digging and make sure that you're accessing your resources and stuff for people to help. Don't be afraid to ask for help on something like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We do have a question here from Kiara Douglas. Kiara, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Billy? Kiara, you there? I will.
My question is, how do you remain resilient enough to put out content that can possibly be censored, especially in this day and age?
That's about a result. That question is about a result. Every single artist since the beginning of time has been censored. Why would you think you would be any different? The whole point is if it's censored, it's working. Right?
Yeah.
So you should be happy that it's censored, that you would have the gift of it being censored. That means that they're scared of you. Right? I gotta read this. I want to read this this Toni Morrison quote that I should have memorized by now because I love it so much. Maybe I'll commit it to memory at some point. But I found it over COVID. And it's just, I think it's just so beautiful and so right on the money. And she says, this is precisely the time when artists go to work. There's no time for fear. There's no place for self-pity. No need for silence. No room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That is how civilizations heal. It's from an essay, I think, called "In Times of Dread, Artists Must Never Choose to Remain Silent."
Amazing.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Billy, there are a number of questions in here that generally are asking, in your opinion, how to best be prepared and then best nail an audition.
Well, I'll say the thing that we said earlier. Stay ready, then you don't have to get ready. Look at the landscape. Look at what's out there. Look at what your type is. Look at what you like. Learn the roles. Be familiar with them. You know, look at Broadway. Look at movie, especially if you're a Broadway actor. It's like, what's on Broadway? What roles are you right for in Hamilton? Learn them, every lyric, so that when they call you the day before for the audition, you're not scrambling to read the play and find the game and I don't know the words. You're already ready. So that's the first thing that I would say. And when that happens, then everything else falls into place, because then you can channel the nerves into something that's positive and not something that's destructive. Does that make sense?
I think that's perfect, yeah.
It does.
Yeah. You know, just be prepared. You know, like they used to say in the Boy Scouts, I guess they still do. Be prepared. You got to be prepared. And that means that you have to do the research beforehand in anticipation of.
So let me
so
ask
much.
you.
Sorry, Tova, I was going to turn it back to you. I know that you have a few more things for Billy before we wrap up.
Yeah, so because of that, I have a question for you. What do you think the quality that you have that was the most instrumental in your success?
My humility.
Really?
Yeah. I don't have any delusions of grandeur. My favorite thing to do is audition. I've always been discounted. My talent has always been discounted up until now. The only place I had to disprove them was the audition. I loved auditioning. I went to any audition I could. And I got to the place where like, will he audition? Of course I'll audition. You know, that thing that they put on you. Oh, offer only. I'm not offer only, and I will never be offer only. If somebody thinks I can't do it, then I'm going to go to the audition.
Marlon Brando did.
Yes. For what?
For The Godfather.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Didn't want him.
Right. Right. It's like, put your ego out of the way and just do the work.
By the way, you quote often from great writers and thinkers. I'm very impressed with that. So, do you read a lot? And if you do, when do you have time?
Well, I used to have more time. I don't have a lot of time now. So if it's not on audiobook, I can't really read it.
Right.
You know, I travel a lot, so like I can put it on audiobook, and that's like the cheat of reading, but it is the modern day way of reading.
Yeah, I find the same way. If I go on a walk, I take it. Yes.
Yeah. So that's how I get it all in.
Uh-huh. I wanted to ask you a question that I don't know if there is really an answer. Maybe, you know, I heard Ryan Murphy say that the more about writing, that the more specific it is, the more universal it is.
Yes.
And my question is it true for acting also? Do you think?
Yeah. Yes, totally. It wasn't until I leaned into my authenticity as a queer man, that I became a truthful actor. I spent the first 20 years of my career trying to be straight enough so that I could eat. Some sort of manufactured straightness that would make everybody else feel comfortable. And it wasn't until I was like, I'm not doing that no more, that then I was real when I walked into the room or every time I spoke. It's like, that's the fun about this right now. I don't have to pretend ever.
Yeah.
I'm exactly who I am. I always am. You like it or you don't. That's it. You know?
So what I wanted to say is this, because we're coming to the end of the hour. First of all, we want to congratulate you on the FX deal.
Thank you.
What a triumph of a journey.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy that you are with DJ Guggenheim, who used to be my old assistant.
I love that.
And I wanted to say that, you know, you could have stayed home and just frolic and say, oh, it's just student. But you showed up for the students. And
oh, I always show up for the students.
It shows character. And I think that beside being an artist, you're a teacher at heart. Because
I am. I believe that. I do believe that. You know, I had the luxury and the gift and the blessing of teaching. And it was a real turning point in my artistry. You know, I learned more about myself from those kids than I had ever done on my own. So
I just want to tell you that your kindness and the fact that you show up for us is noted and appreciated. And we will pay you in kind, because the school and the students are going to promote the movie on social media.
Yes.
And we're all going to see it on Amazon Prime, when it premieres July
22nd. Amazon Prime Video.
Prime Video, July 22nd. We are going to be there. We will create anticipation for the movie. And I just want to thank you again from the bottom of our heart for coming and sharing your time and wisdom with us. And we can't wait to see what else you're gonna do from now, because I know that you're gonna get even higher and higher, and we want to be there with you for that journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, everybody.